This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How we doing today on this Friday, Football Friday, on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. Appreciate everybody watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel or checking us out on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6. Or perhaps you are my favorite listener listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. We'd appreciate everybody who downloads, rates, reviews, subscribes, all that good stuff to the show on their favorite podcast platform. Going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to keep it in tradition. It's week number 6, and it's Football Friday. Alabama is up in Nashville, right where I am. I snuck up to Nashville last night to scout Clark Lee's team, and Alabama might be in for a little bit of a fun day on Saturday. So we're going to talk about Alabama and Vanderbilt, and we're going to do that with our experts, Katie Wyndham and Hunter DeCiver. You follow them at Hunter DeCiver and at Katie Wyndham _, our experts right here at BamaCentral.com. So we're going to get into the game with them. We will kind of circle back to the Georgia game last week just to kind of put it all to bed just a little bit, and then we will make our picks for maybe a little bit of a lackluster slate in college football this week. So we appreciate everybody jumping in and joining us. You can always find us on the comment section. Leave me a comment, a question, a query, or complaint at Joe Gaither 6 as we get into week number 6. Before we bring on Katie Wyndham and Hunter DeCiver, we need to tell you and give a big old thanks to Purple Turtle Roofing. They're the most reliable residential roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, they're going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your appointment, and one of their qualified employees will come check out your roof for free and make sure you're prepared for all of life's storms. You can visit them online today. You want to check them out on the interwebs at roofturtle.com. So let's do it. Let's have a week number 6, Football Friday, and let's hang out with our friends, Katie Wyndham and Hunter DeCiver. First off, thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's just start with Katie. Thank you for joining us. Have you survived? Is your heart back into the right rhythm from our time last week in Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Yeah, I think it has. It was actually – so a lot of times at games, I like to go down at the end to go stand in front of the Alabama student section because to get a potential Rammer Jammer video, and it's normally a little less crowded over there than some of the other areas, corners of the field, because we walk down kind of in front of the visitor section, and a lot of people will stand there on the other side. So I was on the Georgia sideline for the last 5 minutes of the game. Kirby Smart ran right in front of me a couple times. And so I was right down there for kind of all the craziness that happened at the end. And so, but I don't know, I kind of had this like weird sense of, even when Georgia went ahead, that it obviously up until that point, really what it had screwed up was what I was, going to write about kind of, or originally what I was thinking at halftime. I thought I had this great idea going, and then, that when Georgia starts coming back, keeps coming back, and eventually takes the lead, that kind of prevents you from, some of the angles you were thinking about. But I kind of had this like weird sense that Alabama was still going to win, and then, the Jalen Milroe to Ryan Williams connection happened. But then really what I started to get concerned about was, as Georgia was driving, that game was going to get sent to overtime. I was like, I don't want to be standing down here for all of overtime, and I don't know if I'll physically be able to handle that. But thankfully, Xavier Brown handled that for us, and so we did not have to be subjected to overtime.
Hunter DeCiver, it wasn't your first time in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it wasn't even your first time on the field at the end of a game, but just kind of set us up and wrap us up the Georgia week. How did you experience the madness from last Saturday?
Yeah, it definitely was unforgettable. From start to finish, honestly, no one thought it would be 28-0 early in the second quarter, and then obviously this massive comeback. No one expected to happen, but it did, and it's still being talked about today, this game, and it will be talked about for a long time. It's already been considered kind of like the game of the season. Going into it, it was considered like the game of the season, and the hype really, really prevailed. And I mean, there's obviously like 8 more regular season weeks, something like that. But it's going to be tough to have something on top of that. I mean, kind of like similar to what Katie said, I had a story that I was really considering, talking about how perfect Alabama has been, and then the comeback happens, and then I have to switch everything up a little bit. But it was just an incredible environment. Being on the field for those last 6 minutes were incredible. Joe and I and Will were on the sideline, Alabama's sideline. Obviously, there was a much different vibe from when Carson Beck had the touchdown to when Ryan had the touchdown, and it was just an incredible night, and I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Absolutely. So we have to move on. As much as we want to revel in the good vibes, the good memories, the good experiences that were Bryant-Denny Stadium under the lights in a dramatic game, you got to move on. The season continues, and that is one lesson that football often gives you. I struggle with it, Katie. I like to celebrate my wins and hold on to them and just celebrate way too much. But that's not what's happening in the Alabama football facility. Rat traps all around the facility as Alabama goes to Vanderbilt. So, Katie, do you take it more? We heard from the players this week. We heard from some of the coaches that, it's a trap game. It's a trap game. And great, they can say whatever messaging they want to the players, and I think that just apply it. But for me, I think it's less of a trap game and more about rat poison, more about not doing your job, not doing the same things that you were doing going into the Georgia game, going into the Wisconsin game. Because Vanderbilt, on their talent, they can catch you in the trap. But they can make you look real ugly. They can make you look real bad and expose you on film. I think it's more about taking it seriously, taking an inferior opponent seriously this week, going up to an offensive scheme that's going to be a little bit of a challenge to deal with, and saying, you know what, we're going to take on the challenge. We're going to treat you seriously. We have championship aspirations. We might need to replicate, or we might want to replicate the start that we had last Saturday. What's your thoughts when you're in Malmore Athletic Facility on Monday and you're seeing these rat traps? Do you think that maybe they're building Vanderbilt up too much, or it's really just about keeping the guys on the edge?
Yeah, I don't know if I would consider this game a trap game, because I think, and if I get old takes exposed here, just mark my words. But I think in order for something to be a trap game, it has to be like somewhat losable. And kind of like what you said, like it would just have to be something catastrophic for Alabama to lose on Saturday, just because of the talent gap of a team like Vanderbilt. And no disrespect to Vanderbilt, they have looked a lot more improved this year than they had the last couple of years. But it would just have to be something really, really bad and a lot of self-inflicted wounds, I think, for Alabama to lose to Vanderbilt, because it is a road game. But even Nick Saban said a couple weeks ago, I can't remember if it was on Game Day or another interview, that Vanderbilt's like the one place in the SEC that's not tough to play at. The stadium will be more than 50% Alabama fans on Saturday, so it's not even that either. Like first road game, the environment might trip up the young guy. No, it's like that's so. Yeah, I thought, and it was kind of funny talking to the players. You got a little bit of answers of both, of some saying the rat traps were for a trap game and some saying it was rat poison. And I think it can be a little bit of both, because then also Kaylin has said in interviews that they haven't even addressed at all being number one. They haven't talked about it at all. But then talking to Chris Kapilovich on Wednesday this week, the offensive line coach, I kind of asked him, it seems like the message has been avoiding a letdown, and we saw the rat traps, and kind of what have you seen from the team in that area? Do you think that like they've been practicing with intensity? And he said the coaches have been talking to them about, I think he was talking about a time that he was at Michigan State and they had beat Ohio State and they were all fired up, and then they went down and played a mid-Purdue team and lost. And so he was talking about examples in the past of times that you can have a big win and then kind of have the letdown. So I think that's been think it's more of avoiding a letdown, not letting things get to your head, and instead of it being a trap game. And I think this team is focused enough, and it's still early enough in the season, and especially heck with that 1-0 mindset they have every week, that it's going to be really hard for them to have any sort of trap game when you're focused on going 1-0 each week. So how could anything become a trap when you're focused on winning?
I love you so much, Katie. Hunter, what do you think about these guys? You've been around the program for the last 5-6 weeks since you moved to town, covering the team. Do you get the sense that they're taking it upon themselves to go 1-0 each week?
Yeah, they always say that, but I'd be stunned if Alabama wins by less than 3 touchdowns, less than 20 points. Like they say it's a trap game because Vanderbilt has actually had a really solid start, 2-2, which is actually pretty decent for them, including one of their losses to Mizzou, who literally last year won the Cotton Bowl over Ohio State. They're currently undefeated. I mean, they've obviously, we're going to talk about it later on the show, I know, but they've had some close games, but this is still I wouldn't say a top tier program, but a program significantly better than Vanderbilt is, and like in general, but Vanderbilt could definitely be a little surprising, but in general, I don't think this is necessarily a trap game. Obviously, I think the team is preparing for it as if it were. Like, no one in that locker room is saying, oh, yeah, we're going to win by 30 or 40. That's just not going to happen. And that's what Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack and Nick Sheridan say as well. They never really have said, like, oh, like, we're going to – no, not that really anyone has ever said, like, oh, we're going to destroy this team or whatever. But I don't think it's going to be close in general. Really only one person that comes to mind is Vanderbilt's quarterback against
Perfect. Go right into that because that's my next spot. How dangerous is Diego Pavia in the run game?
Yeah, that's the thing. So Alabama's defense, I mean, we've written about it constantly that they've been really stellar so far. However, against quarterback run, it's kind of been a little iffy, especially against South Florida with Byron Brown, but that's South Florida. Now we're going against an SEC school. Obviously, Vanderbilt, as Kay said, Nick Saban, it's not a difficult environment to play in, but it's still an SEC school regardless. And Diego Pavia has, I think, let me find the exact stat. He has 14 less rush attempts than pass attempts. So he has the ball constantly, and Alabama definitely needs to clean up quarterback runs. I mean, Carson Beck didn't really do it much, but when he did in the fourth quarter, it definitely worked. But that's really the only thing that is a little scary. But besides that, I still think Alabama's going by 20 plus.
Katie Hunter's dancing right around it and kind of nailed it. Vanderbilt makes a change this offseason. Clark Lee, basically in an effort to save his job, says, I'm going to take over as the defensive coordinator, and I'm going to hire Tim Beck as my new offensive coordinator. Tim Beck, former offensive coordinator from New Mexico State. Well, Tim Beck says, cool, I'm ready to go to the SEC. We had a good year. We upset Auburn last year. Let me bring my quarterback with me. And this guy – you've heard, Katie, you've heard Kane Womack. He's a baller. You've heard Cohen Hitchler talk about how gritty he is. Oh, he's a playmaker. He's a baller. He's a gamer. He's not the athlete that Byron Brown is, but really their offense runs a lot of triple option, more than South Florida. A lot of modern triple option out of the pistol. They're running a lot of quarterback read. They're running a lot of speed option. They're basically getting Diego Pavia involved in basically every single play. I haven't been able to see every single game of him, but what do you think of his game and what he's done to Vanderbilt's program as far as making them competitive in each every game? They've almost exceeded their Vegas win total. They've been in every single game. What's your impressions of Diego Pavia?
Yeah, I haven't really. I've seen like the end of their Missouri game and I think some of their Virginia Tech game week 1. But I think my impression would be that it's impressive what he's been able to do, with that team. One stat I noticed about him last night when I was working on a story is he doesn't have an interception yet this year, and that's always the big key for a quarterback is not turning the ball over. And that's something Alabama's defense has been pretty good at this year. So Georgia didn't have a turnover coming into the game. Carson Beck didn't have an interception, and Alabama had 3 last week. So we'll see if they'll be able to do that again on Saturday against Diego Pavia. But yeah, I mean, it obviously turned out to be a good move getting him out of the portal. Maybe, Auburn wishes they would have gotten him at this point with some of their quarterback struggles. And I think he's ended up being a better plug and play portal prospect than people thought. And, in some ways it's hard to judge at this point in the season. We talked about this last week. And, Alabama and Georgia had only played 3 games going into the matchup. And this week, both Alabama and Vandy have played 4 games. But like Hunter said, I mean, Vandy did beat Virginia Tech week 1, and they took Miami down to the wire last week in Miami. And they're, they've had a lot of transition lately, but they're overall a solid program. And then Missouri took them to overtime on the road, which, I think that, yes, Missouri is top 10, but it's kind of I don't know. It's not as big of a talent gap as Alabama and Vanderbilt will have. And so either way, it's still impressive what he's been able to do. It's, I think you look at that Georgia State game, right? That's who they played and lost to. I think you would hope how they've played in other games that they would have been able to get over that hump and pick up that win. But it's not going to be as lifeless of a team on Saturday as it sometimes can be when Alabama plays Vanderbilt. Like I believe the last 2 matchups have been 55-3 and 59-0. So I don't think it'll be that bad on Saturday.
I'm with you there. We want to take a pause and say hello, Julene Lee, for commenting with us on the Facebook machine. You guys can comment on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at JoeGaither6. And we hope that Julene has a great weekend. All right, let's keep going with Alabama and Vanderbilt. Hunter, my next silly question is, can a team believe themselves into being better? Because very clearly the Vanderbilt has found a belief, has found a confidence, has found this is who we are and we believe in it. I mean, every single game they've been in. Can a team believe themselves into being better?
I mean, confidence goes a long way, but there's a difference when you're playing against the #1 team in the nation that literally just beat the then #2 team in the nation. Obviously, it was a 7-point win, but they were up 28-0 at one point. So Alabama's certainly a powerhouse at the moment. I can't, even though they are the #1, it's not like they're the official best team in college football because there's plenty to debate. You could debate Georgia, you could beat Texas, Ohio State, and a couple others, but I don't think that you could believe your way into thinking that you're going to win this game. Obviously, they're going into it saying, all right, we're going to win this game, but it doesn't always work out like that.
All right, so yesterday on the show, Hunter, I basically picked 3 keys for Alabama before I did 3 players to watch. So my keys were really Alabama needs to bring its own juice and needs to bring its own energy. We kind of danced around that a little bit. And then we've talked about Alabama playing assignment football on defense against the quarterback run specifically, but playing assignment football. And my third key was to stay healthy with the rest of the season ahead. And so I'll just we set those up. I want to ask you if we had to put you on the spot and say what are your 3 keys for Alabama this week, because I think we're all in agreement. The game's probably going to be 17, 30-point victory, somewhere in that margin. It's probably going to be a comfortable win. But there are things that Alabama needs to do. There are things that Alabama needs to improve on in the week. What do you think Alabama's keys are? It doesn't have to be 3, but what do you think are some of the keys for Alabama this weekend as they're playing Vanderbilt?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is what I touched on earlier, is that you have to stop the QB run. It's as simple as that. That seems to be Vanderbilt's main way of offense, whether Diego's running the ball or he's passing it short. That seems to be their offense, like 90% of it. So taking him out, not physically, not injuring him, like holding him in check.
You might.
Nah, I mean, it has happened before. But, yeah, that's the main thing. I guess the next would probably be just from a mental standpoint. Obviously, as we know, coaches, assistants, And in the facility, there have been rat traps, of course. So coaches are definitely instilling that this won't be necessarily the easiest game in the world. And coming off a huge momentum win like this, I think you just have to remind yourself that you're going against another SEC program, regardless of their status in the conference. So one is going against the QB run. 2 is mentality. And 3, let's go with I think let's stick with the run game kind of here. I think Jam Miller has been fantastic to open the season, but him and Justice were pretty silent against Georgia, if I remember correctly. So just getting them back on pace would be great. I mean, Justice, obviously, he's kind of been quiet since that week 1 game against Western Kentucky, but I think hopefully this is a game where you could definitely try and do a little 1-2 punch. And I think that would definitely be a key to chewing the clock and getting out of there.
Coach Wyndham, what would you say are the keys for Alabama? What would you say this is what Alabama's got to do this week?
I like that last one because I think it was interesting how Sheridan on Monday basically said it's not the running backs, it's more the offensive line. There was only really one run against Georgia that a back didn't do what they were supposed to do. And so I asked Coach Cap about that on Wednesday. And, of course, he gave there's always things we need to improve on as a line. But he said, Jam and Justice are good running backs, so we need to get them going. And so, yeah, this game would be a good opportunity to kind of see that happen. I don't know if this is really a key or if that's the right word for it, but I think to kind of tie into the things y'all have said, by having the right mentality and kind of keeping your foot on the gas, I think getting a big enough lead in this game that you can play some younger guys in the second half, that you can continue to develop that depth that you're going to potentially need later in the season. Because Alabama's had a couple of injuries so far through the first 3 weeks, and they've actually kind of been almost, I guess it's just Jeff Allen's magic elixir that some of these guys seem to have had some very fast recoveries, and but you never know. Knock on, you never want it to happen, but there can always be bad injuries, and so you want to continue developing that depth. And just the fact that how long this season can potentially be, you want to have as many guys ready as possible, and the coaches have talked about that since fall camp. So I think this Saturday is an opportunity for that. And then I think can be a key in any game, is you want to win the turnover battle, and so we can continue seeing that swarm D, see how the defense does and the offense, if they can continue doing a better job of holding on, protecting the ball like they did last week. They did have Jalen had his first interception, but no fumbles like they'd had some the first couple of weeks. So I think that'll be big to see if the defense can continue forcing turnovers and the offense can continue protecting the ball.
We're hanging out with Katie Wyndham and Hunter DeCiver right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on the Bama Central YouTube channel or checking us out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon. Talking about Alabama and Vanderbilt as you're going into Nashville tomorrow. All right, Hunter, how many Alabama fans are in the 40,000-seat First Bank Stadium tomorrow?
It's tough because obviously Vanderbilt is definitely off to a better start than years past. But in general, they're not going to really fill up the stadium very far with their own fans. But since this is a game against the number 1 team in the country, maybe they will a little bit more. There's 40,000.
40,000. Right? 39 and change, but 40 is the easiest.
I think Rodeck wrote something earlier this week. Yeah, because of ongoing construction, the stadium is limited to a capacity of 28,934.
Oh
my goodness.
I thought they were done with the construction. I'm sorry. I thought they finished that last off season.
All right. So of the 28,000 and change or so, wow, that's really something.
That's a joke for an SEC game.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of his story. Since I'm already talking about it, I'll just shout out. 24/7. He talked about that this will be Alabama's least attended SEC game in 61 years, other than the games limited by social distancing in 2020.
Oh my God! Wow. Well, you know what?
70,000 people at 8A.
Yeah. Wow. I'm gonna go with probably 18,000 Alabama, 10,000 Vanderbilt. After hearing that, wow, that's really stunning.
Oh, Katie, you want to play your own guess there?
That sounds about right, or maybe 15,000 Alabama. Because I know last time Alabama played there, my family and a lot of people, and I'm sure they did it this year, bought like preseason ticket packages from Vanderbilt and then just sold like the other non-Alabama games. And I mean, the thing is, Nashville is so central for the SEC that it's not a far drive for Alabama fans in Huntsville, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, even Montgomery, or any kind of surrounding state. So it's easy to get to, and it's a fun city. So that doesn't really help Vanderbilt's case either, that the opposing fans want to come just for the city and then to see their team get a big win. And I always feel a little bad for Vanderbilt that they're running out, and there's probably more boos than cheers when they're coming out at their home stadium. But yeah, I think there will be a lot of more crimson in the stadium than gold and black.
All right, so we're all in pretty much agreement about how that Alabama is going to probably have a pretty comfortable victory. But let's talk about Vanderbilt just real quick in one more aspect. They got off to a 2-0 start. Las Vegas had them at 2.5 wins this year, right? So we're not a gambling show, but I do like to pay attention to some of those elements because it's fun to me, right? So they got 2 wins. They lost close to Georgia State, 36-32. They lost in overtime to Missouri, 30-27. Now, okay, we're probably going to lose big to Alabama. But my question to Hunter and Katie is, will Vanderbilt hit the over? Will they get one more win on their schedule? That's all it takes. After you beat the after you beat the Hokies in the first week, look at the rest of their schedule. We are against Alabama. We're at Kentucky. We're home against Ball State. There's our winner, maybe. We are home against Texas. We're on the road against Auburn. We're home against South Carolina. We're in Death Valley against LSU, and we're finishing at home against Tennessee. So, Katie, does Clark Lee hit the over with one more win this year?
I think they hit the over. Now, will they pick up an SEC win? That remains to be seen. I mean, I think we'll kind of see how Auburn continues to look the rest of the way, and say they get blown out this weekend. They just kind of fold their tents, and I mean, because they're 2-3 right now, and if they lose to Georgia, which they probably will, they'll be 2-4, and so then it can get to a point where, I mean, Diego Pavia already won in Jordan Hare once, so who's to say he can't do it again? But yeah, I think they definitely hit the over. It'll just be a matter of how many more, if they can get to bowl eligibility, which might be a little bit of tough sledding after losing to Georgia State, the heartbreaker of Missouri.
Whew. Hunter, will they hit the over, and will they get an SEC win?
I don't know much about Ball State. So with that alone, I think Vanderbilt's going to get the win there. So yes, they get that, but SEC wins, that's really going to be tough. There's not many teams that I think will get them a chance. What?
You know which SEC team they're beating, Hunter.
I definitely have that one in mind, but I can't officially say that Auburn is going to take the
No, not Auburn. No, they're not going to be. They might beat the Auburn game, but I have confidence in one win. Katie knows which one it is.
South Carolina.
That's exactly right. They're going to get
Really?
Shane Beamer. They're going to get Shane Beamer at home.
Oh, boy. That would really be something.
Okay, maybe that was just my own.
It's possible. South Carolina's really been a bummer this season. I thought they'd be much better, but
probably a failure of leadership, Hunter.
That's definitely a possibility from Mr. Beamer. Yeah.
But then, like, there's the big enigma of like how they blew out Kentucky when Kentucky has kept it close to Georgia and then beat Ole Miss on the road. So it's like,
it makes
I feel like that's just some typical SEC East stuff. Even though I know we don't have the East and West this year, I feel like that's just been typical SEC East vibes the last couple of years.
The bottom feeders eat each other throughout the rest of the year. So maybe maybe South Carolina does win, but I've never had faith in Shane Beamer, and so we'll keep that consistency going and take Vanderbilt to win that SEC game. Why don't we wrap this up, because I don't have much more on the Commodores. Let's start talking about picks. Let's talk about picks because it's a decent little week. in college football. But before we tell you before we make our Week 6 picks on Football Friday, we need to tell you about our friend Derek Daniel, State Farm, right here in Northport, Alabama. You can call them at 205-758-3391 for all of your insurance needs. You need a local agent who knows the area, who knows where to take your car, who to call to repair it, make the repairs around your house, who can help you out practically, not a 1-800 number. Call 205-758-3391. Derek Daniel and his team, you can call Red, Reese, and Victoria. They can get you a quick auto insurance quote, and you can get into their system and on their team. Make sure that you're properly covered with the proper coverages, as it is a very wild time in the country. So you make sure you're properly insured with Derek Daniel State Farm Insurance. Call them at 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel and State Farm is there. All right, let's keep it up and let's finish this Football Friday up with some picks. We'll save Alabama and Vanderbilt for last, but we'll just scroll through our ESPN and start picking some of these fun games here. And really, to me, College Game Day messed up. I know Cal Twitter has been a lot of fun, and they got a big game with Miami this week. But why the hell are you not in College Station, Texas, for the biggest game of the weekend? It's Missouri at Texas A&M. Number 9 Missouri against number 25 Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a 2.5-point home favorite. And I was telling Hunter before we started, I think this is Missouri's biggest game on their schedule. The biggest game on there. Yes, people are looking at Oklahoma renewing that rivalry. People are looking at going to Tuscaloosa for homecoming. But I think the way that Missouri's schedule sets up, Katie Wyndham, this is their most important game. If they beat A&M on the road, they've got UMass and Auburn, and should be 2 wins, and then they can come into Tuscaloosa undefeated. You drop the Alabama game, and the rest of the year's schedule is pretty smooth. If they can beat Texas A&M, they can be in the SEC championship.
Yeah, I mean, this if they can win this, it sets them up in a good spot for the SEC championship and the playoff, because even if they lose to Alabama, like you said, the rest of their schedule is pretty easy. But I think I'm going to have to – last week for Auburn, I said, fool me once, shame on – so I think I'm going to have to do that again this week. Last week I picked against Texas A&M. I picked Arkansas. A&M proved me wrong, so I'm not going to pick against them again. I haven't been uber pressed by Missouri, so I'm going to go with Texas A&M at home at Kyle Field, because I think this is a big opportunity for them. It's a ranked matchup, first-year head coach. The crowd will be fired up at Kyle Field. It'll be tough for Missouri. I don't think they've had that. What's been their biggest road? Have they even had a road game?
Not really. Not really. They've had a cakewalk schedule. They weren't at Boston College. They went to they did have a road game, didn't they? No, they haven't been on the road yet. They haven't been on the road yet.
They haven't even been on the road yet, and they played Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, and Vanderbilt, and struggled against Boston College and Vanderbilt. So I'm going to go with A&M. Sorry for how long that was.
No, it's all right. Hey, we don't see Will Miller around here. We love you, Will. We miss you, Will. Come back next Football Friday. Hunter Decider?
Yeah. So this is actually really a big game for both sides. Now that I think about it, because this is Elko's really first big game against a ranked SEC team. Obviously played against a ranked team earlier in the season against Notre Dame. I don't believe they're ranked anymore. And if they are, they're pretty low on the list.
I think they are.
They are? Okay.
They love to have Missouri. They love to have Notre Dame in the polls.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
The Catholics across the nation happy. Notre Dame is ranked 14th.
Oh, what? All right. I must have saw something different. Okay. But anyways, so this is this team is better than Notre Dame based off rankings alone. Mizzou, as I said previously, were fantastic last year, and they're trying to prove that last year wasn't a fluke, although through the first 4 weeks, or first 4 or 5 games or whatever, they are undefeated, but they haven't really been impressive wins besides in week 1 against, I think it was like Murray State, where they dropped like 60 or something like that. So this is definitely a test for both teams. I know Mizzou, I think, is either coming off the bye or they had the bye the week prior. So that was definitely much needed based on how they performed so far. So, but if in general, if I had to pick a team, I haven't seen Luther Burden really shine yet. who's Mizzou's wide receiver. He was supposed to be the best wide receiver coming into this season. He was really one of the best last season. But so far, there are plenty of other receivers that have gone pretty viral, such as number 2 in crimson and white. But yeah, it really comes up to him. He needs to show out this game, and if he does, Missouri wins. If he doesn't, Texas A&M wins. So
what's your pressure?
You know what? Luther Burton's going to win this game. Yeah,
I like it. Katie taking A&M, Hunter's taking Missouri. I'm taking Texas A&M. I want to take Missouri. I want to so bad.
Good game. Yeah.
But everything that both Katie and Hunter have been saying, Missouri's looked lackluster all year long. The offense was just supposed to be their calling card. Yeah, and you look at the points scored, good enough. But the teams are just terrible. Murray State, who cares what you're doing against Murray State? You're struggling against them. You're 38-0 against Buffalo. And I know Boston College has been more improved this year. I want to pick Missouri so badly. And when the game does get kicked off at 11 a.m. on Saturday, I will be saying MIZ. But Texas A&M will win is kind of what I feel like. I think they're going to end up playing not Taylor Green. Who's it? Marcel Reed is their backup quarterback who's been getting a lot of the playing time for Texas A&M. I think he's going to continue to get that playing time and do well. And we'll see the Aggies win a big game. Let's keep rolling here. Our next game will stay in the SEC. Really not a ton of top 25 matchups this week, which is why I guess College Game Day is going out to Cal. But at 2:30, you have the Deep South's oldest rivalry. Auburn is going to Georgia. Now, look, is Auburn in Georgia's stratosphere? No, but it's a rivalry game. Georgia coming off an emotional loss. Hugh Freeze has had nothing go his way this year, and it's all been the players' fault, not Hugh Freeze's fault. He has been perfect. The players have been terrible, so hopefully they can get on the same page. Will they get on the same page, Hunter Decider, in Athens? Do the Auburn Tigers stand a chance to pull a top 5 upset?
I wouldn't say so, especially since the game is in Athens. Auburn is coming off a really bad loss to Oklahoma.
Will you bet on the Tigers with 22 points?
No, I saw that right before this too. No, I would not. Georgia is coming off – they're both coming off losses, but Georgia's definitely stings more. Obviously, Auburn's was a worse loss considering Oklahoma had 5 wide receivers out. Their 5 best wide receivers out, I believe. So I think Georgia wins big here, plain and simple. This is like – I wouldn't really call it a redemption game, but because they're still – what are they ranked, 5?
Yeah.
4. Okay, yeah. Like they're still fine. Like they're not that bad in terms of the rankings. So they can't really improve their ranking much more. But I think they win big, plain and simple.
They're 5 in the AP. Georgia is, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But, I can see Auburn keeping this close because they like to do that in rivalry games, even though I believe they have not won in Athens in a long time now. But, yeah, I think Georgia wins.
It's a bad week to be an Auburn Tiger. It's always a bad week to be an Auburn Tiger, but goodness gracious, Georgia after – look, I know everybody's feeling good about Alabama winning that game, but Georgia – I think that they should be rolling the rest of the year. Just roll that second half. I mean, obviously, they're not going to be going for it on every 4th down like they were in the second half, but roll that second half game plan out there. Let Carson Beck get down the field. I think that Auburn is in for a big-time butt whooping, and it's just a matter of circumstance as Georgia is a little bit angry after not being able to complete the comeback. I think Georgia watched that Alabama film and is kicking themselves all over the place for different mistakes. And I think that Auburn will be on the brunt end of that frustration this weekend. We'll keep rolling also at 2:30, needing a bounce back. Number 12, Ole Miss is going to South Carolina. Shane Beamer. Katie Wyndham, you taking Shane Beamer to upset Ole Miss?
I don't know. Like I said earlier, South Carolina's been a weird team this year, and then we may have seen last week Ole Miss kind of get exposed as potential frauds after their offseason hype. But I am going to go with the Rebels to bounce back on the road at South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. Obviously, it was definitely a strange loss. I mean, Georgia beat Kentucky by 1, and then Kentucky beats Ole Miss. So Kentucky's definitely a team I'm looking at for the rest of the season, but I still think Ole Miss gets this one done. I wouldn't say extremely easily. I think the line, I just looked like 8.5, which I think is fair, but I think Ole Miss wins probably by like 17-ish, somewhere in that area. So it's not a dominant game by any means, but I think they win by multiple possessions.
All right, I'm going to go also with Ole Miss, but I will go with kind of a struggle win. I think they'll kind of I think that you said it was 8.5. I'll take South Carolina with those points. I think Ole Miss will win by 3 or 4, something like that. It'll look ugly, but the Rebels will be happy to leave with a win. Let's go 2 more picks outside the conference, and we'll circle it back and finish with Alabama and Vanderbilt. Let's go at 6:30 on Peacock, NBC and Peacock. Number 10, Michigan, goes to Washington. Yeah, it's not a ranked matchup, but I'm looking at the line. Washington, not Michigan. Washington is a 1.5-point home favorite against number 10 Michigan. Hunter, are we seeing something fishy here? Are the Washington Huskies in line to upset the Michigan Wolverines?
That's funny. I didn't know that was a game on the schedule, the national championship rematch. But thing is, both teams are significantly different than last year. That's for sure. But yeah, sorry, my computer keeps moving. There's a cat here that
Bruce, I said hello.
Anyways, I think Michigan wins this one. I wouldn't say relatively easily. I mean, like you could call it a revenge game for Washington, but no one that was at Washington last year is there now. So plain and simple, Washington's a completely different team, but so is Michigan. But Michigan still is one of the better teams in college football. What are they ranked? Like, would you say 10, 11? Okay, 10. Like, that's still very solid.
Did you take the Michigan or Washington? I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Michigan, yeah.
Michigan. Go Big Blue. Katie?
I think you're putting a little too much stock in these rankings, Hunter. People don't like the polls. I think the media is all idiots. But
we are.
I don't know a ton about either. I feel like when I've seen the Washington scores, they're struggling. So I'll go Michigan.
I like it.
Kalen left.
I'll go Michigan as well. I just saw the fishy line. The top 10 team is a road dog. Not really a gambler here, but if I were, that one kind of sticks out to me as maybe something to play my $5 on. All right, our last game before the Alabama game is also an interesting game. Oh my God, I cannot believe this. 6:45 on SEC Network. UCF, the Knights, are a 2.5-point home favorite at Florida. Florida, in the swamp. You're a 2.5-point underdog. Oh my, what? Billy Napier against, not Hugh Freeze. Oh my God, Gus Malzahn. The other Auburn coach. Katie, will Gus Malzahn have Billy Napier fired by Monday morning?
That's got to be a pretty low point as a program for Florida as a fan. If you're a home dog to UCF, like a non-Power 5 school in your state.
Imagine Alabama plays in Tuscaloosa against UAB, South Alabama, Jacksonville State, whoever, and they're a home underdog. Oh gosh.
Yeah, I think Florida is going to win this one. I'll go with Florida.
Hunter?
Yeah, I'm going to take Billy Napier here in the little Alabama versus Auburn matchup, if you could call it that, with him versus Malzahn. But simple as that. I like Lagway as a freshman. I think he'll just continue to climb, and I think he'll get this win.
The fighting DJ Lagway. He is Billy Napier's only hope. I like your pick, Hunter. I do think that Florida will win, but I just think that the matchup and the setup just is an ugly picture of where Florida is as a program. You're a 2.5-point underdog in your own stadium, as Katie said, to a non-Power 5 in-state school. Oh, God. I think if an Alabama coach ever had that lined up, he'd be fired before they got to the game. They wouldn't let it get that bad.
Yeah. We say that, but then didn't Alabama lose to UCF at home in the early 2000s? So, things happen. Life happens. College sports happen. It's a crazy world out there.
That's exactly right. Let's finish this program up. We appreciate everybody who's watched us today on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or listened to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon. Our last pick and our closing thoughts on Alabama and Vanderbilt. We will be in there for BamaCentral.com, Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. It's going to be 3:15 Central Time. You'll be able to follow us online about noon or so. We'll get things popping inside First Bank Stadium. Yes, I know we can't pick up our credentials until an hour and a half, but we'll be fired up and ready at 3:15 in Nashville. Alabama is a 22-point favorite, 22.5-point favorite over the Vanderbilt Commodores, coming off a big win over Georgia. Hunter is dealing with a cat. Oh, no, he's back. Perfect. Katie, why don't you start for this time? And why don't you just give us kind of your closing thoughts on the game and then wrap us up with your prediction?
I think this Alabama team is focused. I think that they're locked in. I think that they're wanting to play well. I think, like I said earlier, it'll be a good opportunity for Alabama to maybe do some things they haven't so far, maybe establish the run game. Maybe it'll be a good opportunity to get some younger guys some more reps like they did the first couple of weeks. And I think that'll be another motivating factor to play well. So I think Alabama wins and wins big. Like I said earlier in the show, I don't think it'll be the 59-0 we've seen in the past. I wouldn't put it past this team, but I don't think that's what we're going to see. So I think Alabama wins and covers the spread.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see just a lot of running the ball from Alabama's perspective, both Jam and Justice. And really, it's going to be the same thing on the other end with Diego Pavia. So, in general, though, I think Alabama still wins big. Obviously, Milroe's still going to pass the ball. He's still going to run the ball, do his usual 3 touchdowns or so, 4 touchdowns total touchdowns. And Alabama wins by let's go with an exact score, 45-13.
I like it. I like it.
Maybe that should have been our question is, will Milroe continue his 2-2 touchdown streak this week?
Do you think you will, Katie?
Depends on how much they want to run the ball. And I was like, how much, and they would never say this, but how much will a game like this be used as an opportunity to stat pad for Jalen or Ryan Williams, or are they going to be content with scoring however and getting out? I'll say he does continue it.
Hunter?
Based on my score prediction, what did I say, 42 or 45?
45.
Okay. Yeah, so that accounts for 28 points, meaning that 2 other touchdowns would belong to either Jam or Justice. Yeah, I'm still going to stick with that. That works. I think that he'll continue the streak.
I think he will as well. And I think Alabama's defense is going to play very, very well. I think that Diego Pavia will break a couple 8-yard, 12-yard runs across the whole course of the 60 minutes. But on the whole, I think Alabama's defense is going to play very well. And because of that, I've been feeling 42-10 most of the week. I want to respect Vanderbilt a little bit more and say 42-17. Either way, that leaves Alabama with the win and the cover. What does that do? Where's my number for the 54.5 is the total. So, yeah, that's the over on both scores, 42-10 or 42. No, it's not. It's under if they score 10. It's over if they score 17. Math majors. I'm not a math major. I'm a journalism major. But I think that Alabama will win and win comfortably. And really, for Crimson Tide, it's about playing fundamental defense and staying healthy so that they can get into that South Carolina game next week. And really, the next couple weeks, we've got some big games, South Carolina, and then going up to Tennessee. So handle your business this weekend by playing well, and I think that they will. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you follow Katie at KatieWyndham_ on the Twitter machine.
Yeah, it's always fun on Football Friday.
Hunter, thanks so much for joining us as well. You can follow Hunter at Hunter Deciver on the Twitter machine as well. We'll see you tomorrow, Hunter.
Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. This has been a good one. Looking forward to Saturday.
Absolutely. And we will all see you tomorrow right here at BamaCentral.com, your home for the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. We've had a lot of fun this week breaking down the Georgia game. What a game, what an experience, and trying to set up the Vanderbilt matchup. It's going to be, look, it's important for Alabama to take it seriously tomorrow, for Alabama to play well, kind of knock them out early so that they can get back to Tuscaloosa and get things rolling for the next week for more challenging opponents. We'll be in First Bank Stadium tomorrow for the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. We encourage you to follow us right there, and we'll be back to talk to you on Monday to break down the win or loss for the Crimson Tide right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.